Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hello, Frank. Yes.
Oh, hi, John. I have to say this is an interesting concept for me because I'm not terribly sure the format of this session, but we'll make it up as we go along.
It wasn't that easy to get in, so
Well, yeah, I've got various challenges today. Unfortunately, my internet has got an intermittent fault on it, and the session I gave this morning, I don't know if anybody watched that, but I was talking about the Perkins Bacon archive.
it was very good. I was there.
Oh, thank you. Just as I finished and Richard Stock started giving the votes of thanks, my internet died. Right, so I've no idea what Richard Stock said. I didn't catch the end of it. But I've got a man with a shovel, or sorry, an engineer. I assume it's a man, but I don't know. Coming tomorrow morning to dig up the road outside Albinwell and find the fault. So we are where we are.
No, the actual talk went very well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good fun. It's a big project, mind. It will keep me busy, and I think my successor generation and their successor generation are all busy. It is a Herculean task.
Well, it'll be a while before you get round to 1890. I might have to help by then.
Right, I've got how many people can I see? I can see 8 people, but they're all muted and they're all cameras off. So I assume that they're listening to me. Essentially, all I was going to do was just tell everybody where we've got to with 2022. Essentially, it's been a bit of a troubled route, and I think of all the years to stick my hand up to be chairman of organising committee for a big international FIP show in London, 2020 probably wasn't the ideal solution. We got to the point where in March last year, we had a fantastic show lined up. The dealers' booths were sold out. We were oversubscribed by the number of people who wanted to come and exhibit here. And it was just all looking fantastic. And everybody was really looking forward to it. And then, of course, the world stopped spinning a little bit, as no doubt everybody's realised by now. And it became a bit of a challenge. And I've now got a PhD in force majeure clauses and contracts. And it was a bit tricky, actually, trying to recover from where we were. But we stuck at it, and we got to the end of it, and everything was rearranged, and the FIP were actually really helpful. And we reached the point where I couldn't get a date for the BDC, anything sooner than February 2022, which of course has turned out to be an absolute blessing. Where we had London 2022 rescheduled for a year later, it would have been a disaster because it all would have been cancelled again. So where we are at the moment, we've actually taken the moral high ground, and anybody who wanted their money back could, and we've paid everybody. We've obviously had some stall holders cancel, we've had some exhibitors cancel, and all of those have been paid off. And I have to say, it's now coming to the way where we're now getting people desperate to undo with their withdrawals. And we have actually had a meeting earlier this week, trying to sort out how we're going to reallocate the empty frames that we've now got. And there will not be a queue. I have to say, we've got more than enough people already applied, and we're just now trying to work out which ones we accept off the ones that actually applied for the show last year. And they will be getting letters in the forthcoming weeks and months inviting them to take part. And the dealers are coming back. I'm delighted to say that I actually sold a booth only last week. So, the things are getting back on course, and I'm very optimistic that we're going to have a fantastic show next February. So that's all well and all fine and dandy. And, inevitably that some of the costs have to be spent twice. I spent all my advertising budget buying newspaper adverts, philatelic magazine adverts in Australia and USA, etc. But all that money was spent, so I'm afraid I've got to dig deep and find the money to spend it again. And some really weird things have come up and come back to bite me in terms of costs. The cost of storing all the frames, because I've gathered in all the old UK frames from the various regions around the around the country, and they have to be stored in a dry, secure environment, and that costs money. So there's endless little things that are coming back to bite, which have meant that the money's a bit challenging, but nevertheless, there's huge optimism, huge desire for it, because I don't know whether Japan or Cape Town are going to go ahead. They're meant to be making decisions this month, as to whether they are going to progress or not. But they're the only two FIP shows, FIP passenger shows between now and London. And if they don't go ahead, then funny enough, the show after London 2020 will actually be London 2022. Why that's actually important is there's a little game that the world plays with the FIP flag. It's a bit like the Olympic flag. I'm sure people can remember Boris going over to Beijing to collect the flag in 2008. Well, I actually went to Wuhan in 2019 to collect the flag. Yes, I was in Wuhan just as a few months before the COVID outbreak, but I collected the flag at the end of that exhibition, and I've now got the flag in my study at home. And of course, if there's an FIP show before London, then they'll need the flag. And I keep asking the FIP where they want me to get the flag to go to, and the answer is, well, just hang on a minute, and we'll see, and all the rest of it. And it may turn out that I've actually got past the flag to myself, which I don't think I need a ceremony for that, but you never know. Anyway, so that's just a basic quick summary of where we are. The organising committee met about a month ago for the first time to blow the dust off all of our action points and file lists and to-do lists, etc. And we're just beginning to make progress now. For example, the IREX has been redrafted, and that's actually with the FIP for agreement now. And all being well, that will be posted on the website next week. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions about London 2022. I'll be absolutely delighted if they have. So if you do want to ask me anything, please just unmute yourself and fire away. Complete silence.
Hi, Frank. Are you expecting all the exhibited places to be taken by those that were not able to be accepted last time, or are you going to have to open it up to new people, do you think?
The short answer is that we've got around about 3,600 frames available, and we had applications for just over 5,000 frames. Now, for all sorts of reasons, some people apply when they're not qualified, and inevitably some people also apply for maybe 3 or 4 different exhibits. And given that we were faced with too many, we took a view up front that only one multi-frame exhibit will be accepted per exhibitor. So if you apply for 2 5-frames and 1 8-frame, then we said, well, tell you what, we're only going to take one of those. If you apply for 2 1-framers and an 8-frame, then you probably got them all. In fact, we did accept all 1-frame exhibits that were qualified. So we only had 253 withdrawals, frames, that is, yeah, out of 3,600. And those people who withdrew were for a vast variety of reasons, but sadly, 1 or 2 people died. Inevitably, they obviously had to withdraw because the FIP rules don't allow the conclusion of that if it's in a revised show. But 1 or 2 people have sold their collections, for example. But the biggest reason for pulling out was people who were coming from countries who are having their own FIP shows in the near future. So I'm talking about the Swiss, Hungarians, for example. And these people, I'm sure, quite understandably, would much rather exhibit in their home FIP show than one in London. So, we said, well, thank you very much for entering, but we will obviously give you the chance to withdraw, and we've refunded all the money. So that's good. But we're sitting on probably 1,500 frames of applications, and we only need to backfill 250 of them. So the last thing we need to do is actually reopen for new applicants, because that would just cause a huge amount of disappointment And the FIP have been very, very helpful. And they said, look, there aren't any rules for things like global pandemics, but what we're going to do is actually freeze the clock. So if you had an exhibit that was last exhibited in 2016, for example, the 5-year rule in FIP terms, where you qualified in 2016, it has to be within 5 years of qualifying. That sort of constraint. And the FIP said, oh, don't be silly, just get on with it. If you're accepted for 2020, you will still be allowed to qualify in 2022. So there's no problems of that nature. The only one issue we've had actually is youth, where, and you're very, very knowledgeable on youth, John, I know you are. And the issue is, of course, that people are now 2 years older than they were 2 years ago. I know that's a radical thing to say, but you can see that they're then competing in a different age group. And indeed, there are some people who were going to be age 20 in 2020, and they will be too old for youth in 2022. So we did have a long conversation with the FIP about this, and they said, well, actually, we don't think it's fair to allow people who are over age to be in the classes. So that is actually, it's the one area where we've had special considerations. And what we did do, everybody who is now too old for youth, we did say to them, well, look, I'll tell you what, if you and your commissioner say, yes, you want to continue exhibiting in London, what we will do is give you 5 frames in the adult class and not charge you for it. So people in that category have not had to pay the normal frame fee for London, which of course is the going rate nowadays. And all they had to do is pay £25, which is the entry fee for a youth exhibit. So there's some people who take advantage of that. And equally, some have chosen that they don't want to continue to exhibit. But that's the way it is, I'm afraid. So are we welcoming new applications? No, not at this point in time. I'm never going to say never, because I don't know what's around the corner in 6 months' time any more than anybody else does. But we simply have a view that we do have a huge reservoir of wonderful exhibits, and we're going to try and take those first. And why shouldn't we? Because those people are the ones who actually applied early, and they bent their backs and they filled all the paperwork in. And, we simply had too many exhibits. So we are going to start sending notes out to the national commissioners. And initially what we're going to do, if, country A suddenly pulled out 2 5-frame exhibits, we will see if there's people from country A who applied, who we didn't accept, to backfill that way. If we do that, it keeps the balance of the show level as well.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, John, I know that that we talked to Stamp Active committee about this, and you were suggesting that perhaps because we therefore wouldn't have anybody from the UK in the youth sections of London 2022, that there might be some benefit in London 2022 accepting some additional entry that hadn't been submitted at that time.
Yeah, and watch this space, Ralph. I'm very keen that we do support youth philately, but equally, I've got to make sure that why, if it wasn't youth but thematic class was treated this way, why on earth would I suddenly reopen for new applications in thematic class, whereas I'm not doing so in aero? It's a really difficult balance, this, but I haven't given up being creative. So watch this space is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
But of course, these exhibits do have to be qualified, and that's the other big issue here. You can't just randomly take any exhibits off the shelf, and they have to be qualified. And I'm sure anybody who was qualified in 2020 and was interested in exhibiting probably would have applied. We can't unwind the clock because there've been so few qualifying exhibitions where people can actually get across the line to be able to apply for the show. And that's another constraint that we are faced with, I'm afraid. A different category entirely is literature, where we did decide, and we've actually had some more already, that there's no reason for us to draw a line on literature. And there are 1 or 2 books that have been published in the last 6 months, which are truly stunning pieces of literature. They are now still accepted. We have set a deadline for that, and don't ask when it is because I've forgotten. I think it might be the end of May from memory. But we've reopened the door for literature. But of course, literature, we're not having to schedule frame space for them and all the rest of it.
Right, it's Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Could you, on literature, you will be able to see the books, etc., at the show, though, won't you?
Absolutely right. Yeah, we've got our good friends in the AIJP, which is the French acronym for the Association of International Philatelic Journalists. They're a partner of ours on the organising side of London 2022, and they will be designing and manning the reading room. And I'm actually delighted to say that we did get some help, I'll call it that, some help designing the whole approach for literature at London 2020, and that's all rolled on to 22, of course. The AIJP were wonderful, and they said, well, do you know, Frank, I think most of the shows in the world haven't quite got literature right anymore. Why do you need to have 2 copies of the books? Why do you need to have a frame fee, which is the same as a standard frame fee? And we said, well, actually, you might be right. And we've set the frame fee for literature, the entry price, to be literally £25 instead of the normal going rate of around about £70 or £80. And also we said we only want one copy of the book. And that has generated a vast amount of interest for literature publishers and writers from across the world. And I believe that London 2022 will be the largest FIP literature class ever in the history of the FIP. We've got, I think there's about 300 and something entries. I can't remember the exact number. But the other thing we've done is accept digital literature. Whether we like it or not, digital literature is coming and growing. It's a bit like a steamroller. But unfortunately, the FIP doesn't have any rules for judging digital literature. And that's been a bit of a problem. So I sat down with Gary Brown, the guy who was then chairman of the FIP Literature Commission. We actually did this in Stockholm at the big the Royals exhibition over there a couple of years ago. Sadly, Gary and I died, by the way. That's irrelevant. He and I sat down. We're actually in a pub with a bit of paper, and we came up with a draft set of digital judging rules for FIP exhibitions. And we put that to the FIP saying, look, we really want to accept digital literature. It's definitely the way of the future. And they very helpfully agreed to accept our digital literature template, judging template, as a prototype for future FIP shows. So we have permission from the FIP board to run a digital literature class on an experimental basis. And funny enough, I was talking to my friends in Canada a couple of weeks ago, and they actually have asked the FIP if they can use exactly the same digital scorecard on a second experimental basis for their show coming up in June 2022. So yes, please let me have any more literature entries.
Frank, the other thing I was going to ask you about, for those who don't know on the call, is the changeover of exhibits.
Yep.
Worth mentioning that, perhaps.
Yeah, London 2010 really had a most innovative way of approaching FIP shows. I don't know, I can see the names on the screen, but I have no idea which part of the world they're from. London is an incredibly expensive place to hire an exhibition hall. If you ever saw the size of the invoice for hiring the BDC, your eyes would water. And what we really want is a hall twice as big as that. But we simply can't afford it. The Excel Centre, it would cost a 7-figure sum to hire. And when we don't have a sponsor in Royal Mail or anybody else, we're having to pay for we have to raise all the money we spend through frame fees and dealers booths and any sponsorship deals we can do. We're having to pay for the whole thing ourselves. So in London 2010, this is down to Brian Trotter's creativity. We said, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, instead of having one 8-day show, we're going to have 2 4-day shows. So all of the classes are in one half of the show only. So I think it's this way around. The postal history class, for example, opens on the first Saturday, and it goes through to the Tuesday evening, and the judges work really hard and they get all their score sheets, etc. And we announce, sorry, we don't announce, but we know who's done what. The judging is finished of the first half. And then we have a mad panic. We close the exhibition hall middle of the afternoon on the Tuesday. And literally we have an army of volunteers who go and hit the hall. And what we do, we take down the first half of the show, we put it back in its boxes, deliver it back to the bin room, and then we get the second half of the show out. And that entails a traditional class, for example. And all the other classes are fitted into either the first or the second half of the week. And whatever the RX and the website says, because I can't remember which class goes in which half, that's the way it's done. So if anybody on the call hasn't already volunteered, and there will be in London, we would love to have some extra pairs of hands, please, on the Tuesday afternoon. That's the one pinch point of the entire week. In 2010, much to everybody's astonishment and delight, we were actually all in the pub about 8:30, we finished. But it was a military exercise, it really was. And you can perhaps imagine, as well as needing willing labour, there's a considerable amount of security needed to be on hand as well, because you can perhaps begin to imagine the value of some of the material that's changing hands. I say changing hands, I don't mean literally being acquired. It was taken out the frames and put back in the boxes. So yes, thank you for that, Kim. But it is the busiest time of the entire week. But do check the schedule if you want to come look at a particular set of exhibits. Make sure you come in the right half of the week, or ideally come both halves of the week. That's actually what the dealers would like.
Hi, Frank, it's Estelle Shale. Could I follow up? I wanted to ask you about the volunteering.
Yep.
Those of us who volunteered for the unfortunately cancelled show, are we going to be automatically on the list for 2022, or do we need to volunteer again?
It's a great question, Estelle. Thanks for raising it. The default is we will contact you, and we will do so, but we actually sat down around a Zoom session, you can perhaps well imagine, rather than a physical meeting. And we said, when do we think is the right time to actually approach people? And the answer is we've decided to leave it a few months because the world is still a very uncertain place. And I think what you've asked is a very valid question. And what I will do is put a paragraph in the next newsletter saying that if you have previously volunteered, you're on our list and we desperately want you to come back and help again. So I will put that in the newsletter. So thank you for raising that. It's a great point. Let me even make myself a note. But the person doing all the administration for the volunteers is Mike Huddersfield Roberts. Unfortunately, the UK Commissioner is called Mike Roberts as well, but they're different people. That's Mike Ilkley Roberts, and Mike Huddersfield Roberts is the guy doing the volunteer coordination. That's not their real names, it's just where they live. Would you believe that they've both got second initial J and they both live in West Yorkshire? But apart from that, it's dead easy to tell them apart. Anyway, so it's Mike Huddersfield Roberts who is in charge of handling all the admin for the volunteers. And I will just chase him, Estelle. But I will put a note in the next newsletter to that effect. So thanks for the question.
Can I just follow up with a minor point in that because the time of year has changed, volunteer availability may well change with it. Do you have flexibility? So if somebody finds that they could only do the second half of the week rather than the whole week, is it a case of you're still a useful body and you'll still use us? I mean, or ideally, what happens if we can come for longer?
Well, I have to say, we are a bit concerned about the drop-off in volunteer availability. London shows have always been fantastically well supported by volunteers. You know, just think about the Olympics. I don't know if everybody on the call got involved in the being Olympic host in 2012, but it was just a fantastic camaraderie and all the rest of it. But we're all getting older, I'm afraid. In fact, everybody will, by definition, be 2 years older. So we just need to be wary of all that. But even if you can only give me half a day, we'd be absolutely delighted to have you on board. But please make sure it is Tuesday afternoon. That's the one pinch point of the entire week where we need every able-bodied man, woman, and child. Well, not children, but we need everybody who can help, because it's going to be literally all hands to the pump that day. I've already made one categorical decision, by the way. We've told all of the overseas commissioners that they will be drafted in to help. No choice here. If they're coming and I'm paying their hotel bills, I expect them to put in a full shift, taking down, dismounting and mounting that exhibition on the Tuesday afternoon. But thank you for the question, and I will definitely do something about it. Right, anybody else got anything to ask me?
Yeah, I've got a question, Frank, about the use of the show logo on merchandise, particularly that produced by dealers at the show. There's been perhaps a little disquiet about individual dealers who may be overprinting material with the show's logo for their own personal profit. Is there a policy on that?
Not only there's policy, there's a contract. There's a clause in the dealer booth contract that says you can't use the, I'm paraphrasing because don't ask me to cite the precise paragraph, the precise wording, but basically it says, we love you to use the show logos for promotional purposes, but you're not to do it without our permission for financial gain. That's essentially what the contract says. So if you are aware of anybody who's breaching that intent, then I'll be delighted to find out what they are and ask them for a cut of their profit. And many people have approached me. You know, there's a couple of postal authorities, for example, have asked me if I can enter an agreement with them. And I wouldn't be insensitive as to talk about names or money. But, you know, a couple of people in that area have actually asked to use the logo, and I've been delighted to come to some arrangement with them.
Okay, thanks for that, Frank. Obviously, we're hoping that we might be able to have a post and go machine on the Stamp Active area. And obviously, if other postal administrations are using Post and Go, they'll have had to approach you to use the show name or logo in that respect, and we'll do the same from Stamp Active.
Yeah, I mean, Ralph, it's in everybody's interest to work together on this. You know, London 2022 has been entirely managed by volunteers. I mean, I'm not taking a penny for any of the hundreds of hours I'm putting into this, but we have to go in with a commercial head on. You know, the total turnover of the show is well into 7 figures, and you know, you got to go in with a very clear understanding of how the heck you're going to pay for all this. So we have to be commercially sensitive, but equally we're doing this for the furtherance of our own hobbies and the goodwill of philatelists worldwide. And we want to have a party. We all deserve a party. So you know, we want to make it happen. So if it's anything to do with supporting youth philately, then the answer is yes. What was the question? I mean, you're the only people who I've not given a commercial rent, not asked a commercial rent. We did actually, I think John and I negotiated a fee, which was it £10, John? I think we agreed, I can't remember. And the only reason we did that was because we needed somebody to sign a contract with us to make sure you were going to behave yourselves and tidy up.
Actually, one, Frank.
I'm sorry?
I think it was actually £1.
Oh, was it? Oh, damn.
Thank you very much.
Opportunity loss. But we decided not to make it naught. So we did actually have a legal binding contract with you. And it just says you're going to follow all the rules and not write anything rude on your walls and that sort of thing. So we needed you to sign that. Actually, I suppose the kids around it might be relevant. Actually, as a complete aside, I've got a big plastic box in fact, it's down here in the corner of my study, where I throw all sorts of charity stuff into it, which I keep giving to Stamp Active when it's full. Are you going to be at Midpex? Can I bring it to you there?
You can, yes, you can.
Thank you
very much. And we are still running the Kid Stamps Free Postal Club. You know, although we haven't got any events, we have still been running Kid Stamps. So, thank you very much.
Yeah. So Midpex is the opportunity. I've no idea whether Midpex is going ahead. Are you involved in that, John?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And have you made a decision yet whether you're going to continue?
Yeah, it's definitely going. Well, it's definitely going ahead unless things radically change. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It will be the first live philatelic event in the country, won't it? For years, it seemed like it.
Yeah, well, at the moment we're still expecting around 70 dealers and 40 societies, specialist societies, to take part.
Oh, brilliant.
I think
And remind everybody the date whilst you've got the opportunity.
it's the 3rd of July at the Warwickshire Exhibition Centre.
Yeah, that's not Stoneleigh, is it?
It's near Stoneleigh.
Yeah, it's not the Stoneleigh Exhibition Centre, not the Agricultural Centre is what I mean.
No, it's not the Agricultural Centre. No, it's the Warwickshire Exhibition Centre.
Yeah. Yes, it's very close to my mum's house, would you believe? So I've got an opportunity to go and call in. I'm a Coventry kid, really. Haven't lived there for a long, long time.
I'll put the kettle on Wednesday for you then.
Yes, because you predate York as well, don't you? York's a couple of weeks after you, I think.
Yeah, York's 16th and 17th from memory, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if that's still going ahead. I've not heard that it's not.
I'm told that they are still planning to run it, and again, unless circumstances change.
Okay, good.
Also, Stafford's hoping to go ahead as well, although that date is before the presumed government full relaxation.
That's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, Stafford's it's not that far from me, but there aren't any roads. I live in North Derbyshire, and getting down to the bottom left-hand corner of Staffordshire, there just aren't any roads. It's a hell of a journey. But we will see. Okay, can I help with anybody else on London 2022? Any silly questions? Any offers of help? Anybody want to give me £100,000 grant, which I could really use?
There is no supporters form on the new website yet, just to for people to sign up to pay you any money. As
Yeah, we're grappling with the new
Yeah,
website.
so,
And most of the paperwork we had needs a complete revision. I was astonished how long it took me to get a new IREX. It was uncanny the number of changes I had to make. But yes, the other thing is the organising committee is by and large the same as it was, but we've had one or two key people change. For example, we've got a new treasurer, and also the guy who was running the patronage and the supporters areas actually decided not to go forward as well. So we've got somebody new in there. But by and large, it's the same old people who are getting involved.
Good luck.
Thank you. That's the one thing we need. You know, it's you go in with your eyes open trying to run these things, but I didn't think I'd have to do it all twice, which is the major challenge. You know, you think, yes, we're only a year to go, only 6 months to go, only 3 months to go, and then it'll all be over. I can actually start opening my own albums again. But sadly, I've had to do a lap of honour for 2 years, which wasn't quite in my plan. But there we are. Why wouldn't we say yes? Right. Anybody else got anything? Okay, well, we do have a chat room on the, we've got a booth at Stampex, and if I was on a different screen, I could tell you the number, I can't remember. But if you look at London on the chat room search, you'll find us. And just post a question there if anybody wants anything else. And we'd be delighted to hear from you. Okay, thank you all very much. I don't think anybody else got anything else to say, in which case, I think, is Isabel, can you still hear me? Are you still on, Isabel?
Yes, I'm still here, sorry.
Right.
Hi. Perfect. Thank you so much, Frank. That was excellent.
I think we've run our course, so if you want to wind up, that's fine by me.
Perfect. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you.
Thanks for your youth
Bye.
team. You've helped me out. Cheers then. Bye-bye.